MJ wants to go down and post up. McElvain over to double team. Michael underneath.
Not only was he considered the most dominant player in the league, Michael Jordan was considered the GOAT of basketball after his fourth ring in 1996.
And my favorite, the 96 Chicago Bulls.
But what he didn't know was that the team he would face on a December night would mark an era in the NBA of the future. The Lakers newcomers, Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant, of course, would become a dynasty just a few seasons later, but before they became that legendary duo, they were hungry. The young team had acquired two superstars between free agency and the draft, and they wanted to start spreading their dominance. But this was still the Jordan era. A player with an ego that wasn't going to let any contenders just walk all over him. Their swag, their attitude, that didn't matter to Jordan. In MJ's head, those guys would never even come close to his throne. He was just wired a little differently.
People always debated, who's the greatest player of all time? Dumb question. It should be, who's the greatest team?
And on that cold December 17, 1996, it wasn't just any game. It was a clash between two NBA generations, fighting to either extend or impose their dominance in the best basketball league in the world. And most importantly, the outcome of that historic battle would be an analogy for the future of basketball. Kobe Bryant was the first to know MJ's influence. He was now his rival in the NBA, but throughout his life, he had been his idol. Kobe loved the aesthetics of Jordan's game and, of course, his competitive mentality, but no one wants to settle for second place, right? Especially not the Black Mamba. So when he was just 18 years old, he got his first chance to stand up to Mike.
Hey, you only got 3 now. I get 6. How do I get that foul? You only got 3 now.
And next to him was Shaq, the superstar, who had arrived in free agency to turn the Lakers back into a competitive team. But it wouldn't be easy, because in 1996, the Jordan era was at its peak. The 4-time regular season MVP, 4-time NBA champion, and 4-time finals MVP had returned almost 2 years after his first retirement. And that time away from the court after reaching the top only added to the aura to the man everyone considered the greatest player of all time. But MJ still had a lot to achieve in the NBA before the end of his career. That's why this battle on December 17, 1996 meant much more than a basketball game. It was a duel between two eras trying to seize the throne of basketball. Michael Jordan's Bulls had already proved it all. Kobe and Shaq's Lakers still had everything to prove. A fierce duel between the hunger to win of two young players who wanted to take over the world against the ego of maybe one of the most selfishly dominant players in the history of the NBA. But the Bulls, coming in with a record of 21 wins and 3 losses, knew it would not be an easy game. Luke Longley, the team's starting center, was injured. And, well, not ideal if you had to face Shaquille O'Neal. The Lakers were coming in with a record of 18 wins and 8 losses and would try to take advantage of their center strengths against the depleted Bulls. And Bill Wennington, the starting center for the Chicago Bulls this game, had an unexpectedly high responsibility. When the game began at the United Center, the Bulls had a clear game plan. Finding Jordan in the low post whenever possible was Phil Jackson's main strategy. And well, it didn't take long for MJ to show why. Not even Shaquille's help side defense prevented the Bulls star from making the difficult buckets. Even the TV crew were so delighted with the play that they showed the replay in detail. But he wouldn't be the only dominator of the game, of course. Always fearsome, Shaquille O'Neal was beginning to show why, despite his youth, many people already considered him the best center in the NBA. His dominance was so absurd that not even a triple team could stop this guy. Throughout the first quarter, he absolutely abused his physicality to generate points easily. And the best you could do was to send him to the free throw line. Of course, that wouldn't stop Jordan from continuing to do his job on offense, as in this play in which he again demonstrates his versatility from the low post by converting an elite fadeaway jumper. When Jordan got the rock in transition, he tried to attack the rim hard, getting fouls like this one that translated into easy points from the line. And also, always taking the best possible decision, as in this play in which he finds Scottie Pippen on the left wing, from where he knocks down the three-pointer. During the first quarter, there are plenty of examples that demonstrate the intensity with which the Lakers defenders guarded Jordan. And don't forget that Los Angeles was the 8th best defense in the NBA during the regular season in defensive rating. And they had players like Eddie Jones who were ready to try to do whatever they could do to stop the GOAT. And the basic truth is that the Lakers had prepared for the game better. They were getting points in the paint all game long. thanks in part to Shaq's stellar play, and the Bulls couldn't find easy looks on offense. The first quarter score, with the Lakers leading 36-22, clearly showed this. Not only Shaq had a great first quarter, Nick Van Exel had gotten off to a very hot start in the game too. Meanwhile, rookie Kobe Bryant was still waiting patiently for his chance off the bench. And that's precisely where Jordan started the second quarter, taking a break, but he would be back in just a few minutes. Although the Bulls were way behind, the difference did not increase during the minutes that number 23 was on the bench, thanks to great plays like this incredible Tony Kukoc half-tip, half-pass. And curiously, when Jordan did come back in the game, Kobe entered at the exact same time. The Mamba would have the task of stopping the 8-time NBA scoring leader during his minutes on the court. Of course, on offense, Kobe didn't need too many instructions. On the first ball he touches, Bryant shoots the three-pointer from the right wing and knocks it down. This time it was Michael's turn, who gets an ISO from the right corner in front of Kobe himself. After a nice move, he gets to the paint and finishes with a dunk. Of course, knowing Bryant, it wasn't going to end that way. A few minutes later, Kobe gets an easy layup in the paint after a great pass from Corey Blunt. But it was at this moment where Jordan decided to take over the entire game. First, with a shot from mid-range after receiving a screen where Kobe sinks in too much. Same distance as his next basket, in which after an offensive rebound from Dennis Rodman, he manages to find the GOAT to score again from mid-range. Even when he missed, Mike was dangerous. After demonstrating his footwork by fooling his defender, he misses the shot, but he grabs the rebound for the easy putback. Always carrying with him that dog, attacking the rim assiduously and drawing fouls to continue scoring points from the free throw line. And once again here, attacking Byron Scott from the low post where he knocks down a fadeaway jumper with ease. And just in case it wasn't clear to the Lakers what Jordan was doing here, he scores again with the same move. And despite the deficit on the scoreboard, Michael's doing everything he can to keep the Chicago Bulls afloat. The Lakers defense was so good that Jordan was forced to look for second chance points, like this offensive rebound after a Scottie Pippen miss that he again turns into a basket. He was turning garbage into gold, people, and he was also pretty active on defense too, making good decisions like this double team that ended up causing the turnover from Campbell. Of course, being aware of the mismatches, if a big man was guarding Jordan on the perimeter, Mike was going to make him pay. Like in this play where he gets the basket before the refs say the foul is on the floor. But do you know what the worst thing about all this is? After Jordan's absolute clinic in the second quarter, his Bulls are still down by 15. Mike had 20 points at halftime and had the whole team on his back, but Shaq and his 23 points and 6 rebounds to end the first half had propelled the Lakers even higher. Kobe had also done well in the few minutes he had, and certainly the California offense was clearly outplaying the defense of the defending champions. Now, as the third quarter began, however, Jordan began to struggle against the defense. The same shots that were cash in the first half weren't exactly falling anymore. The night was getting complicated for him, neither from mid-range nor from the paint. He even missed a layup that he would never miss. And the worst part is that these problems are not being experienced by Shaq, who continues to score over double teams as if they were basically invisible. And the Lakers were really threatening to break the game open. Now at this point, Jordan tries to find help in his own team with plays like this one, where he passes to Scottie Pippen in the corner, who unfortunately misses, but actually that was a rare shot that night as the Bulls forward continued to help Mike with threes like this one. Even though Shaq was in the paint, that didn't scare Jordan either, as he continued to be aggressive from the low post and draw fouls. During that third quarter, he couldn't catch a break though. Refs calling travels, even though he did travel multiple times that play, but he did knock down some baskets from the paint with shots a few feet from the hoop, which was his most reliable range in that game. And during the third quarter, he was also active on defense again, with actions like this one in which he gets a great block on Eddie Jones. And as nobody besides Mike was really taking the initiative, Pippen decides to start creating his own shots with pretty good success, and Phil Jackson decides to give a break to number 23 during the last moments of the third quarter. Now the score at this point is 101-83 for the Lakers. The United Center is off, people can't get into the game because their team is playing so disappointingly, and with no one pulling the team beyond MJ, Pippen, and Tony Kukoc, who's starting to light it up, the Bulls could beat a lot of teams, but not one as talented as LA. And as the final quarter begins, Jordan is still at it, making points out of nothing and getting fouls that he turns into free throws. Now, Kobe sees the court for a few minutes in the fourth quarter, but Del Harris sends him back to the bench not long after. I mean, at the end of the day, Kobe was an 18-year-old kid who was playing in high school just last season. Meanwhile, MJ continues to play make and find open teammates who sometimes fail to convert, but sometimes do. In fact, when Kukoc was getting the ball in the second half, he was getting buckets because the Lakers were still guarding MJ extremely hard, picking up unnecessary fouls. Of course, that didn't stop him from diming up his teammates. I mean, he was dominating the game without really scoring that much. Kind of the same vibe as watching Jimmy Butler, who's able to dominate games just with his intangibles and basketball IQ, even in this era. Anyway, by the time the fans realize it, Kukoc, MJ, and Pippen are getting the Bulls back in the game. The atmosphere heats up, the team's starting to get really aggressive on every play, which of course rubs off on the players and the fans, and Jordan is about to get a steal in a really crucial part of the game, but gets called for a very controversial foul. And after MJ draws another foul and scores one of the 2 free throws, Tony Kukoc scores this extremely clutch three-pointer with less than a minute left on the clock. So the game ends up going to overtime. The score is tied at 116. The Bulls tightened up on defense and had won the fourth quarter 33-15. But on the first play in overtime, Jordan shows elite IQ. He hits Shaq with a stunt, acting like he was going to double team, and it makes Shaq do exactly what MJ wanted. Meanwhile, Kukoc is on one, literally cooking Shaq during the second half. When he's so far away from the rim, his defense is less effective, and the Croatian had one of the best wrists in the league. And when the Lakers realize that the game is slipping away from them, a good brawl breaks out between Shaquille and Dennis Rodman. I mean, it's honestly a good thing they didn't actually give them time to fight each other, because I think that might have been one of the biggest fights in the history of the league. Anyway, just as the game started, Jordan gets fouled and knocks down 2 free throws to seal the game. The Bulls have come back from a 22-point deficit in a game that seemed impossible, and they made a huge upset in front of a franchise that would go on to become a dynasty. That day, Michael Jordan proved that this was still his era. If the Lakers had won that game, it would have changed their confidence. How, you might ask, just being a regular season game? Well, because beating those Bulls was like beating KD's Warriors, They were literally the best team in the history of basketball, with the permission of Bill Russell's Celtics, of course, and they had the greatest player of all time. If the Lakers had won that game, the story would have been completely different, but they didn't. The Jordan era extended for 2 more seasons, winning that 1997 ring and the next one in 98 before his second retirement. And during the 90s, he let no one shine. The Lakers and Kobe simply had to wait for him to retire before he could explode. Besides, I'm sure Kobe remembered every detail of that game even 20 years later, and it served as a learning experience for him. This prolongation of the Jordan era also helped him greatly in the GOAT debate. I mean, MJ had won 4 rings up to that point, which is the same as LeBron has today. And considering that the longevity factor has ended up belonging to the kid from Akron, the prime factor that belongs to Jordan and is his strongest point to defend that he is the GOAT are those 2 extra rings, which elevated him even more in his status in the world sport. In the end, the outcome of this historic game was a premonition of what was to come in the next decade of the NBA. Alright, that's it for this one. Thanks for watching. Let us know what you thought down in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff, and we'll see you in the next one.